The Washington Wizards are once again proving why they're one of the worst organizations in all of the NBA. A few years after getting out of a terrible Bradley Beal contract, losing assets, having to rebuild, and suck for a few seasons because of the terrible contract you gave Bradley Beal, they did the same thing again, giving a 4-year, $213 million contract extension to Trae Young, a player that they just traded for, Corey Kispert and CJ McCollum. No one else in the league was really vying after this player. The Atlanta Hawks were openly shopping him, and the market for him was not huge. There was no reason you had to give this man $50 million per season. It breaks out to $49.5 million next year, $51.9 million in 27-28, $54.5 in 28-29, and then the fourth year in 29-30 is a player option for $56.9 million. And I'm going out on a limb and saying that Trae Young is probably going to pick that option up. It matched what he could have got from any other team in the NBA. So it felt like the Wizards were giving Trae Young this contract as if they were competing against the rest of the NBA for this player. Where was the market for Trae Young that demanded you have to give this amount of dollars to this player? Especially a Wizards team that 2 years ago drafted Alex Sarr, an improving player, a player they drafted young, a little bit of a developmental project. In year one, he averages 13 and 6. In year two, his efficiencies go up. He averaged last year 16 points and 7 rebounds. A player who, 7-footer, you start to like some things that you're seeing from Alex Sarr, a guy you'll probably have to play in a few seasons, but he's a young basketball player. You also have the number 1 pick in this upcoming draft. More than likely, based on, this move for Trae Young, they're probably going to draft AJ Dybantsa. I'd be shocked if they go in a different direction. It feels like the wing position is exactly what they need. You traded for Anthony Davis. Now, here's the kicker with that. There's been speculation that Anthony Davis is not going to play a game for the Washington Wizards. A lot of people, are thinking that he's going to demand out or they're going to have to make a move with Anthony Davis. And if you have this expensive, veteran player in Trae Young, and the whole rest of your roster is on this young timeline, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I would have, one, cleared up what I'm doing with Anthony Davis, but also I would have signed Trae Young to a 2-year, I would have given him a 1-year extension on the deal he already had because he declined his $49 million player option, which is basically what he's going to be getting, this upcoming season. And I would have given him a 1-year extension just to keep him happy, keep him, bought in, locked in on this particular season, and let's see how it goes. Because Trae Young is a player that, one, has dealt with injury concerns. He's smaller, not great on the defensive end of the basketball court. And the Atlanta Hawks shopped him and got better once they moved him. They went 28-15 after that. We know that, Jalen Johnson really took a step forward. We saw these players really start to step up. And, they competed they actually gave the New York Knicks the best series out of anyone in the playoffs this year, winning 2 of the first 3 games. But the Atlanta Hawks got better once they got rid of Trae Young. I just can't understand what the Washington Wizards are doing. And we see this time and time again with this organization. They trade Bradley Beal, like I said, getting rid of a lot of having to get rid of assets because they signed him to such an awful contract. Then they trade Deni Advija, a young player that is now with the Portland Trail Blazers, All-NBA, All-Star level player. Had a fantastic season. How did you not know that guy in-house was this level of basketball player? This organization continually, time and time again, is paying guys the wrong amount of money, getting rid of the wrong players, and building their roster the wrong way. This upcoming season, you're probably going to have, Trae Young, either Bilal Coulibaly, I believe is how you say his name, or Keyshawn George. Both of those are good players for them. AJ Dybantsa, assuming they pick him, there's a chance they go Darren Peterson and have him play the off guard with Trae Young. I would lean a little bit more with the forward because they also drafted Trey Johnson out of Texas, number 6 last year. A player who did some okay things. He averaged 12 points a game in his rookie campaign. That's not too bad. Only played 24 minutes. Maybe you have AD at your forward and your power forward and then Alex Sarr at the center position. But I can't really understand what their thinking was that they had to lock this up long term, because I don't mind roster going into next season and seeing how it performs. But if Anthony Davis gets hurt next year, like he often does, and then Trae Young is, in and out of the lineup, or he's a liability defensively, what is the path forward for the Wizards? You're locking yourself up, because that will, again, be a very hard contract to trade. And what you have to remember is, in the modern NBA, with the aprons, with the way that they've done, trade limits and how hard it is to acquire, how hard it is to acquire a bunch of these big contracts because of the aprons, as well as these anti-tanking rules, you're going to have teams less likely to take on a terrible contract, just so they can get assets. What are the Washington Wizards going to do if in 2 or 3 years this is absolutely blown up in their face and they have to pay $57 million a year to Trae Young and Anthony Davis is out, and you have a couple of these young players that you like, and Dybantsa and Sarr, and you have 2 different timelines of this old player and Trae Young and then a bunch of young players on your roster? In my opinion, the Washington Wizards should have heavily leaned into going, relying on their youth, their young players, their first overall pick this year, Alex Sarr. Hope he takes another step forward and develops into, a top 10-ish center in the NBA. But instead, they did what they always do, and they paid way too much money for an all-star level player, but a player that we don't believe can be the first or second best player on a championship team. You don't have to give max dollars to a player like that. You look at the NBA, it's all about depth, and you cannot afford right now to be paying 3 guys max dollars. You're paying Anthony Davis, a ton of money. You're paying Trae Young a ton of money. And then you're going to be paying Alex Sarr and AJ Dybantsa. Now, obviously, Trae's contract will be over by then. But think about how you're building your roster if you want to make any moves. And this organization just continues to show why they've been unsuccessful for so long. They had a little bit of a stint with John Wall and Bradley Beal where they made the playoffs, but they weren't any real threat, to be title contenders. And again and again, it would just be very frustrating to be a Washington Wizards fan. I'm not a fan. I'm not a hater of the team. I'm just simply analyzing what I continue to see from this organization. Trae Young is a player that I didn't mind you taking a chance on at all. I don't mind that trade. You're getting rid of CJ McCollum, who's older, maybe doesn't fit your timeline at all, and Corey Kispert, who was not really a great player, and you're getting a former All-Star in Trae Young. I don't mind you taking a chance there, but do not immediately then buy low and then pay him 4 years, $213 million. That train of thought does not make any sense. And it's why I believe the Washington Wizards will continue to struggle as an organization unless AJ Dybantsa turns into, one of the best players in the NBA, which I think he has a chance to. But you're certainly not setting him up for success. A lot of organizations like to jump the gun. And it gets very frustrating. I said it years ago when the Timberwolves, they saw that Anthony Edwards was this really good young player, and they traded a ton of assets for Rudy Gobert, paid him a ton of money, and then you have to get rid of Karl Anthony Towns, and you're now stuck in a weird roster situation with Julius Randle and guys that you might have to get rid of because you're paying so much money and you got rid of so many assets for that player and Rudy Gobert. And the Washington Wizards, now you're kind of in the same spot. Let AJ Dybantsa develop. We know that a lot of players in the NBA aren't reaching their prime till 26, 27, 28 years old. And at 19, 20, or whatever Dybantsa is going to be when he comes in the league here, or when the season starts next season, he's not going to be ready to win an NBA championship or compete. So let's give him a little bit of time to develop and run his own team. But now you're going to have ball-dominant Trae Young. You're going to have Anthony Davis, who's going to demand the basketball. You want Alex Sarr to continue to develop. I just don't like the direction of this organization and what they continue to do time and time again. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. We're still waiting on some Giannis news. It's starting to get really frustrating. I did a video, talking about the fact that I'm sick of that story. Can't wait for the rest of the NBA, free agency, trade season, draft coming up here in the next couple weeks. Appreciate y'all watching. If you love the NBA, take a second to subscribe. Sub, we're out.